Hi guys, welcome to today's episode of the Spiritual Evolution Podcast. I'm your host Andrea, and today I had such a fun conversation with Brandy. She was exactly like the being and the energy that I knew she was gonna bring. She brought it, and I really am excited to share this message with you guys because we communicated about so many beautiful different things, and I'm definitely gonna have to have her on again because we just clicked. So, Aries and Libra, they just clicked. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, and have a great day.
How did you start your journey? Like a little backstory on how your spiritual journey kind of unfolded.
It's kind of actually funny to talk about because it sounds so silly looking back at it now, but we all know as just spiritual entities in ourselves, every little piece of the puzzle adds up. So when my son was born, when he was in like the toddler phase, right before he turned 1, he was super into Frozen. And he was like addicted to that movie. And I'm like, all right, cool, whatever, we'll just watch it. But every
Yes.
night for like a couple months, I would have these dreams about these symbols, and I didn't know what the hell they were. And I'm like, all right, cool, we'll dive in. It's fine. And I left it alone. Didn't think about it for a long time because me and my hubby were both working. Life was crazy. I didn't even think about the spiritual path then. And then a couple years later, somebody had introduced me to runes. And I was like, okay, I've heard of that before. But I was like, why is that so familiar? And then all of these dreams kept popping up. I kept getting these back to back dreams, started doing research, and it went from there. It started with
Oh,
crystals, I think, like about a lot of other people. And then it
yeah.
just went like wildfire.
Right. Yeah, it's like Pandora's box. It really is.
Absolutely.
Um, but that's amazing. Like a lot of like Odin came to me in the dream realm. That's how I started working with him. And that Kali has come to me in the dream realm. She's come to me a couple other ways. A little bit like intimidating. Their energy's
Yeah.
pretty intense. But I knew it was her. Like, and I wasn't scared. I was just startled. Like, I was just like, oh, whoa. So I'm all about the dream realm. That's like where a lot of my stuff has, like, my connections have been made to, like, the pieces of the puzzle come together. I think.
I think it's easier to manage in that form because we're not so kind of like restricted by
Tied down.
society standards in a sense, if you will.
Yeah, like tied down to a certain, like, the ego is kind
Yeah.
of not as present
Hmm.
in the dream realm. Kind of, you're more like have a more free spirit kind of
Absolutely.
imagination, kind of like anything's possible kind of feeling in the dream realm.
Yeah, big time.
So let's see. What do I? Next one I have is, how do you connect with your roots of, like, as an Indigenous woman? Like, what do you have you couple, like, little, like, maybe like simple ways that have really helped you?
There's been a lot of different ways. It started when I kind of got into the path of witchcraft. I know now that's not something that I'm meant to continue forever, but it is always going to be an integral role in the process. But that was the easiest way for me to get kind of intercepted into that portion of my spirituality. So it started with a lot of elemental kind of magic going in, using every element in my spell work, doing spell work outside, and that was one way that I started connecting. And then when I started my meditations, I started channeling, and that's when I would get this native guide who would come through. And I knew I had native background from just the history that my mom told me with my biological father. I know he comes from Hopi and Navajo roots, or Hopi and Apache roots. So he has
Okay.
both of those on his side, but it's predominantly Hopi. So I just started doing research. I reached out to the tribe members through their website. I started doing research on symbolism and trying to integrate all of those different entities into the things that I would try to manifest with. And one
Mhm.
of those symbols was the sun symbol, and I'm in the desert. So, what a better symbol to use out here because that's what we get 90% of the time. His
Yeah.
name is Tawa. And I started working with him, and things just picked up a lot faster. Gifts grew faster. My readings got exponentially, like, just boom and excitingly better for everybody.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's been an interesting process though.
Yes, it's like a constant evolution of,
Yes.
like, the abilities and the even like the guides. Like, I'm getting, like, get new guides sometimes and stuff like that too. And Like, it's funny. It's so funny because I was like, I want a shelf. Like, I need another shelf. And I'm not, like, my grandma, she passed away in February, and she's, like, a part new, obviously, she's a new addition to my ancestor team. She's so funny. She's always
I'm
been so
sorry for
funny.
your loss again. I know we already talked about that.
Yes, I saw that, and I appreciate it. But yeah, she's with my grandpa, and like they were to be able to be together for his birthday and Valentine's Day. But she came through, and she she came through as like a hawk, like the day after she passed, and that was like super intense for me. And then she definitely has come through in like different ways just to like let me know that like it's okay, you know what I mean, like she's doing good now.
Right.
And it's definitely like made a difference in like my views on death, I think, in the last
Yeah.
like couple years. And now I have this shelf that I'm getting from her, that I'm inheriting from her, and that it's like kind of like how it's manifested. Like I needed a shelf, and now I like gonna have my grandma's, and I have like other little things from her, like stuff in my kitchen or whatever. And so it's very interesting because now I'm able to, have that piece of her, even in just like the flowers from her funeral, like stuff like that, like those are special flowers now. Those white roses are important. So yes, it's little things like that for sure. That it doesn't have to be complicated. Like I went over, we visited on Mother's Day, and I brought her, a gift, and took some dirt from her site and stuff like that, and I left her some stuff. So it's just really, it can be simple. Like it doesn't have to be.
Like the crystals, like I always tell people this, and I don't ever, because some of my best friends own some of the most beautiful metaphysical shops I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
And I don't ever want to take away from the fact that those things are assistive. But at the end of the day, you don't need the crystals. You don't need the extra herbs. You just need your energy, and just the basic
elements
that are around us every day to do the things that you need to do. It's all about getting back to just the natural state of things. I think everyone's just kind of lost touch with the natural flow of energy and are focused on controlling it rather than letting it do what it wants to do.
So this podcast I was listening to like 2 days ago, it's really like I haven't even finished it yet, like because just the first 20 minutes, like I was like, whoa. So Aubrey Marcus had this, I'm not 100% what his name is, but he had this guy on that basically was talking about how they called him the rain child when he was in school, and he was raised, his cells were basically taught that like he is one with everything, like he is a part of nature, is him, he is nature and everything. So it's and when he was talking about like how he could call on these elements, how like he got angry and a lightning bolt came down and it wasn't even a storm kind of thing, like when kids would be making fun of him for shit like this, like bringing the rain or whatever. And he was talking about how it's not about controlling it, it's about being one with that element. So it's just chill, like I
that's really what it's all about. And like when I think of things like retrograde hit me like a brick wall this morning. Like this morning was rough. Like you hit those anger walls, you hit the emotional walls where like you're not mad anymore and you just want to cry for like an hour and then everything will be okay. But as you go through those things, like the first thing that I know I used to think of is, okay, how can I control this so I can just get it out of here? Like I don't have time for this. But the trick of it all is you have to roll with it and roll with those tides and kind of accept the energy so that you understand it, so that you can manage it better. Again, not about control, about managing and working together. And I just think that's so important.
Yes, finding like the balance and the that once again like that oneness with the whatever, like, and not, right, like you said, not trying to control it, but just being able to feel it and not judging ourselves for it.
Absolutely.
Not shaming ourselves for it. So how do you feel about like baneful magic for beginners? For beginners.
For beginners. I'm not one of those people who's like, all right, I don't think you should do it, whatever. I'm one of those people who will lay out what the consequences could and could not be. I'm going to tell you kind of, hey, this is kind of how the worst of it could go, but this is kind of the best of it. So I'm going to leave it up to you. But I think it's really important to not trust simple resources. And I don't want to say this disrespectfully because there is a lot of educational resources on social media. But you can't just go with simple education from things like a 3-minute to a 10-minute TikTok. You
Mhm.
can't take a spell from somebody else that you see them do it step by step, because
And
even knowing those
identically do
step by
it. Yeah.
steps, there's things that you need to do for your own personal practice
Yes.
and your own personal protection, so you're not fucking yourself up. Because like it
Right.
can get really bad and it can
Yeah.
get really dangerous very quickly. And that's not
Yes.
something that I want to just brush over when people are diving in and saying, I want to hex my ex, I want to mess up their private parts, and they're gonna all of these things. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's cool. I'm totally on board for like hexing the abusers, totally on board for that. But if you're just doing it for simplistic reasons, you're gonna
Willy-nilly.
jack yourself up.
Yes, right. It's important to have those protections and those like things in place before getting into stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been like through the ups and downs like of the the dark and the light of all of it. So you just have to be careful at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Oh my gosh, just chill. It's like dude, the confirmations lately. It's been like I feel like I'm still dreaming. Like
I knew it happened though. I told you a long time ago when we first started talking, like, you're familiar.
I
I did
know.
it.
I
Okay.
know. I do. I just feel like I know. I think I know we're gonna meet eventually too. Like
Yeah.
it's like constant, like just a whole face.
I love it.
Me too. It's so cool. So have you ever had like an unforgettable moment with Spirit that you feel like people wouldn't even believe it, like even if you told the story?
Story, and there's still people that don't believe me.
Oh, I've been.
We moved to this property that we're on right now, and I rent a portion of this property for my parents because, the economy shit. So, gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
And on this property, we have a pomegranate tree. And when I was first starting my adventure with deity work, it was kind of early 2019 when I started doing research on it. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but let's see. And the first thing that everyone thinks of when you see pomegranates is Persephone.
Mhm.
So I was like, all right, cool. Maybe that's who's here. And I started leaving like little offerings and seeing if that was who it was. When I tell you, I pulled this fresh pomegranate off the tree and left it on my altar overnight, and I woke up and that thing was rotted. It was completely rotten. The inside was black, and I was like, okay, do I have like a demon in my house? I don't know what to do. Started doing more research, and I had 2 black dogs show up on my property in the middle of the night while I was I was getting ready for a new moon ritual. I was just putting out my crystals to charge them. Hecate.
I was just thinking that in my head. Yeah, I work with her too.
She's the first deity I've ever worked with in my life. She's still here. She's still around. She brought me the dog I have now. But no one else saw these dogs. They walked up on the property. I ran inside. They were still here, and nobody else could see them. They were huge. So I was like, okay, hellhounds. Hecate. Cool.
Oh my
Now
God,
I know
that's
what's going on, and now I
amazing.
know why she rotted the pomegranate, because she's not Persephone, and I was being respectful. Yeah, so that was my beginning adventure with her. So that was great.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Yes, she's like my patroness. Like she's one of my main deities that I start. She's one of the first ones too that I really resonated with. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So okay, that's amazing. That's so beautiful.
It was wild.
She sends me a lot of visions. Like she'll she shows up in my meditations like a lot. Like I see a lot of like her symbolism and stuff. So that's really amazing. Yeah. That's really cool though. The dogs. That's
they were beautiful dogs, but I was scared shitless. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I can like feel it. I know. That's how I felt, right? Yeah, like oh my God, the chills like crazy right now. Oh, okay, I get it. So what would you suggest to others who are like finding their roots, that like maybe were adopted or were conditioned in a certain way? Like I was raised Catholic, I never knew about you know what I mean, my Aztec native roots until like 2 years ago, not even. So I always had like such, you know what I mean, like when I would be in history class and like I would always feel some type of way about that Christopher Columbus person, like
this asshole. Yeah.
Like I always felt some type of way about all of it. Like I was always like anti, system and everything. So since I was a kid, so like
I knew that was a part of me. I just didn't know. It wasn't confirmed. You know what I mean? So I do like wonder like what you would suggest. Obviously, like research and like just do what you feel called to. Like look into what you feel called to. But like, what are your thoughts on like those DNA tests and shit like that? Like, what? I don't know, man.
Oh man, I'm already like, I worked for the Department of Defense. I've had my bout with the government and working, making my money there. But even then, I am not one of those people who trust freely giving out my DNA to anybody, because I still feel like there's some like background necessity for them to have it. Like, are you doing some type of genetic testing? Are you creating clones? Like, are you making an arm? I don't know what you're doing. I think it's sideways anyway. But when it comes to DNA testing, especially when you're searching and researching for indigenous roots, it's important to remember that when our people were discovered, if you will, because they love to put that tag, right? All of that colonizers' energy, they've discovered us. When we existed and they found us, it was their job to try to get rid of any type of trace of us, including kind of diluting those bloodlines. So I honestly, could there be a way to trace that back? Sure, but I honestly think the bloodlines are far too diluted at this point, unless you're full 100% Native American, to really dive in and find that accurately. The way that I wanted to look at it was by demographics. You have to look at the region that you were born in, or where your parents were from, all of those things, because you can see the different tribal maps and who's on those maps. And then from there, I don't trust reaching out to the U.S. government to tell me who I am. I would rather reach out to the tribe members and say, hey, how can I find this out? And a lot of them have that information on their websites too.
Wow, that makes so much sense. Yeah, I'm so bad with geography and stuff, like maps and stuff, that would never cross my mind. So I'm happy I asked you.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people who wouldn't think about that.
No, and that makes so much sense what you said about the bloodlines. It's not had why it wouldn't like immediate, because my uncle did get something done and it didn't. And my mom's like, well, I'm like, well, I can't wait to throw that one at her. I can't wait to tell her about that one, because that makes all of the sense. But so what's the next one I have? What is a concept or piece of advice that has changed your life forever? Like something that someone's like told you or you've heard or read that really made a difference for you.
The one quote that I always go back to, and I honestly don't know if I heard this in meditation, if I learned this from a book, or I heard it from somebody at this point, because it's just been kind of an ongoing thing in the brain. It's to remember that although we are spiritual beings, we did and are choosing to live a human existence. And it's important to remember that even though we have these spiritual abilities, the ability to kind of see past that veil, which I have my whole concept of the veil, and it's a whole thing. But
I'd love to know that.
We'll jump into that, I promise. But when it comes to that, like, you have to understand that when we signed this contract, whatever the agreement, the deal was to come back and learn what we're learning, we agreed to stay on this side of the line. We agreed to learn from this side of the line. Can we take the knowledge from the other side and have it assist us? Yes, but that can't be law. We have to be able to adapt in this field of living, in this field of being, if you will.
Yeah, it's not going to your pendulum for every little thing like I did at the beginning.
You don't need a tarot card for every life disaster, I promise. Sometimes it's just mundane and you're just in a bad mood. It's okay.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like a lot more simple than we'd like to think.
It is. It's easier to make it more complicated, because I feel like when a lot of people try to complicate their path, or kind of go into the priestess and the high priestess, and I'm doing all these things with deities and gods and goddesses, and I'm not knocking. It's definitely possible. It's a whole thing, to each their own journey. But I really think the complication of it is a part of kind of the ego death that people need to go through. You don't have to have a title to be a spiritual being. You don't have to have this high entity working and sitting right next to you for you to feel important. You should feel important within yourself already because you're here. You were important enough to
You
be here right
exist.
now. And a lot of other people aren't. So just having that knowing and having that concept, I think could change a lot of people's perspective of themselves.
Absolutely. I'm always preaching, like, we are alive at the one of the most, like, probably the biggest turning point in human history. Like,
And
and I mean,
raising children in it too.
and yeah. So it's like, and going, like, it's a lot and it's overwhelming. But we, like you said, like, this is something that, like, we signed up for this shit. Like, whether we like to, like, believe it or not, like, we're here because we wanted to be a part of it because it's a big deal and everyone wants to be here right now.
And we all play a role in how it changes in the shifts. Every single person, no matter how big or small, every single person makes an impact, whether it be a conversation, a good deed, a random act of kindness, all of those things.
Right, or just grounding yourself, like doing something for yourself. If you don't, you know what I mean, that self-care and all of that self-love, it reflects back to the collective. So it really is important to have that, like, understanding that, like, we are all, you know, making a difference, you know. Absolutely. Like, but yeah, so let me see, what is, let me see, wait, nope, that's the one I just asked. So how, this is good. This is funny. You just said that about raising children. In the next question, how do you consciously parent while reparenting your inner child?
It's not easy, and I'm not very good at it. I'm gonna be the first one to admit it. I am a very reactive parent, and it's not something I'm proud of.
I'm an Aries moon, so I get it.
It always gets you a little bit.
Yes.
But seeing my parents now, or my mom now, because it's just her, but seeing how she acts now that I have my kids, and kind of trying to reflect that on, hey, you weren't like that when I was growing up, so what changed? It puts that sense of kind of that selfish energy in me, like, why weren't you doing that to me? But then I have to remember that they deserve that energy. Like, you should be getting that. But I have to figure out how to, like, shut off those barriers to be like, okay, instead of seeing what I don't want to be in the people that are around me, instead of seeing the negative traits, I need to figure out what positive traits I learned from that so that I can teach my kids to be the opposite of what I've seen in my life. They don't have to go through the same traumas I went through just because I'm not comfortable with where I was. You know what I mean? It's all about coming, like, that full circle and just knowing I can be the curse breaker. I can be the stop to the madness.
Right.
Doing those same things anymore.
Being that, and that's another beautiful thing. Like we are doing something that like a lot of people wouldn't even want to, like, get their, you know, hands into, like. Absolutely. You know, so it's like, yeah, be proud of yourself. It's not pride isn't a bad thing. It's just about how you handle that pride. Absolutely. and like, you know, hold yourself accountable and all of that, and accept, like, that acceptance of, like, what's done is done, and, like, we can just be better now. Absolutely. And stuff like that, because, like, I get it, like, my dad is, like, a different person. He's a Gemini too, so he's just a different person half the time anyway. So it's very interesting. I get it. It's like you were different. It was different when I was little, you know.
I know you'll understand as much as I will. Like, the first reaction a lot of us were taught growing up was to react with anger. Get mad at the situation, because if you're mad at it, it won't happen again. But that's not the reality. I'm having to learn, because I'm a fiery ass Aries. I'm an Aries sun and a Leo rising. So I have all of this really masculine energy that surrounds me. And I'm a very controlling and pushy person. I'm an only child too. So I'm still not comfortable sharing my space, even though I have 2 kids who don't give you any space. It's still something that I have to reprogram myself with, in understanding that when things go wrong, you don't have to be mad about it. You have to educate these small humans who are going through the growing process on how to handle the reactions and how to fix and find a solution. Because I know a lot of us would just either get our butts whooped or just get yelled at and sent to our room every time we did something wrong. But
Right.
none of us learned anything from that. And that's why none of us know how to cope with anything anymore.
And
We just
yeah, and that's
rip it out or get mad at ourselves.
right, and that's why we have this like place, this like limbo almost, where we're like healing ourselves, and like most of us are parents at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like a lot of us have to, you know, have both sides, not both sides of the candle burned, but at some points it feels like that. I mean, as long as you're taking care of, you have to take care of yourself and love yourself, I would say, is so big.
That's
with
the hard
parenting
part.
and it's hard because then you get the mom guilt and the
Yeah.
you know, shame, and I'm not doing enough because I'm doing something for myself or whatever.
Exactly. Or like
So it's hard.
I spent this amount of money for myself and I could have spent it on them. Like we could have done this or that. And it's like, wait, but you need to be taken care of too. And I'm like, that's weird. I don't like that.
Yes, I know. Yeah, like I don't know how to do that. You want me to do what?
That's one thing that I can definitely kind of congratulate the spiritual journey on, is it did give a lot of us an outlet to be our true individual selves. We created that safe space for us to grow, and a lot of our kids are watching that experience being like, oh my gosh, I can make that happen too.
Yes, you can. You can do anything, especially like I think we're starting to see there is a lot of power in the collective. Like there's so much power in the collective.
Yeah,
And that's what they're afraid of at the end of the
absolutely.
day. Like, and so, and that's why they're trying to control, you know, the narrative and all things like that. But I know that we've already overcome it. I think it's just a matter of like things unfolding now,
Yeah.
honestly. So how, this is one thing too. How do you like teach your children without, and like where's the line that you teach them things and educate them on like spiritual path and stuff without like indoctrination and like that, things getting, you know, because obviously I want to like teach my son, and he's already like, he has like, you know, a deck of meditation cards and he likes to play with like my spirit sticks and stuff. Like I know he's gonna be into it, but it's, you know, that like that voice in the back of my head that's like, well,
Like we need to be careful about it. No, I know exactly what you mean. One thing, well, my son, he just turned 8, and my daughter, she's going to be 3 on Monday. So they look at a lot of things that I do, like you've seen. I go live, I do rune readings, I do oracle readings, all of these things. I wood burn, and all of these things all stack up, and I let them come to me with whatever questions that they have. Whether it be like, my son loves crystals, he'll ask me about my bracelets. He's like, Mom, what does that bracelet do? And I can just see him storing the information, just using it for later. And he'll come back to me later. He's like, hey, Mom, do you have any black tourmaline? I had a bad dream last night, and I'd really like to put it under my pillow. So doing all of these things and just stacking it up and having them come to you with what interests them, I think is honestly one of the best methods, because I can throw him 100 books about color magic, but he might not even be into color magic. He might not even want to read runes. He might think it's cool now because he sees me doing it. But if that may not be something that resonates, and if crystals are his jam, you know, we'll start there. You know what I mean? Just letting them explore these different ventures, watching me do spell work, asking me questions about herbs that I put in our food because I make it known we're using salt for protection. He watches me do my cinnamon abundance spells every first of the month. Like all of these things just stack up and add that initial base of knowledge without any attachments to it, because he's wanting to.
That makes so much sense. That makes like, I mean, that just that like answered all my questions.
It sounds simple when you say it, but trying to figure out that fine line is not really easy to do, especially when you're in a chaotic world of being a mom. You don't think about this shit. You're just like, oh, I'll figure it out later.
Exactly. That's kind of especially as a single parent.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the concept of my life.
It'll totally understand.
Work itself out.
My husband works 10-hour days, so sometimes you feel like a single parent during the day.
Oh yeah, wow.
But
yeah,
I
that's
know
a long.
it's not even close to the same.
Well, yeah, but being a mother in general, you know, I mean, especially like more than one, I couldn't imagine having more than one right now either. So bless your heart.
I don't know how I have any hair left. Let's just say.
Oh my god. Okay, so one thing that interests me about like do you believe it's possible even that we could bridge the gap with like elders, that like being able to show elders that there is like a way to break the cycle and stuff like that?
100%.
Yes, like with some, I believe there's definitely some that are willing to see.
There's one thing that I was taught by a few people was to make sure that when you're working with the elders, with the ancestors, with the other side in general, whether it just be whoever you're calling upon, make sure that you're calling back the healed and available ancestors. Because when you have these open conversations with them, what you're able to do is say, hey, I want to know the knowledge from your side, but I also want to make sure that you're open to seeing my side of it too. And I did that with my grandmother. She's the only one that has been able to kind of balance the scale for me. She's like, okay, I see kind of the route you have to go now because of the way the world is. And the world wasn't that way when I was there. So let's see how we can. I kind of think of it as sweetgrass, like how they're braided and how they're intertwined and you have all those energies. Let's braid this together to create a new pathway. And that pathway is going to be stronger because you're integrating all of these different energies and you're integrating all of these different theories and ideas and beliefs into one. And having that oneness literally creates the bridge, because if everybody is making that rope, everyone will connect those ropes together eventually too.
Right, to create like right. That's what the goal is. I love that. That's a beautiful way of looking at it. Yes, like a collaboration of sorts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the best ideas come from, right, is collaborations.
Yeah. Exactly, right? Like I've been loving these conversations, you know, like because when my guides told me when I got back from Florida, like to do podcasts, I was like, a podcast? Like, and they're like, you talk, like you know how to talk, like you can do
I
one.
love it.
Yeah, I love having conversations like this. I think it's important to like just get the message out there to whoever needs to hear it whenever they need it, you know.
And different perspectives too makes the difference.
Right, it does, because we all have something to gain from one another. And that's what's different about our generation, I think, is that we've been able to kind of break down that barrier of like needing to see it from our point of view,
right,
with like how religion has conditioned some people and like, you know, like just in the world. So I think it's really important.
Competition, I think that's what it comes down to. It's not necessarily like, I don't know, I always remember, because I grew up Catholic too, and you'd always see people like giving those big offerings, and I'm gonna give big bucks because that's gonna get me through the pearly gates. And I'm like, I mean, all right, but weird flex, because I thought we were supposed to all be doing this together. Like it was constantly a competition to get the most either gratitude or attention for it. And I always thought that was something weird. And that's a stigma a lot of us have been able to break with spirituality. All of these different practices, all of these different beliefs, all these different pantheons are coming together through us. There's some of us working with Norse, Greek, Roman, all of these different pantheons. And it's wild. Nobody would have even thought that was possible even just 50 years ago.
Right. Yeah, and I'm one of those people that like I've always been into like just learning about everything. Like I just want it all. I want to learn about it. Like I get that spiritual overwhelm very easily. So, and I also have really bad ADHD, so I have like a million different things that I do. But yeah, like I work with different deities from different pantheons and different, like obviously like I work with my ancestors, and then I have, you know, like the dragon and the fairy realm. I work like you know, it's like a lot of different like spirituality and belief system come together. And that's the thing, like omnism, that I've learned about like kind of recently. I talked with another girl about, it's like, you know, you just see the truth in all these different, like there doesn't have to be one way. We all have a different perspective. And I've always said that. So when I was a little girl, I was like, doesn't everybody have to have like kind of a different religion, because everybody has a different perspective? Like I was thinking about this shit. I was like 7 years old. Exactly. Yeah, but I only knew about religion Like, I didn't know about spirits, so that was my mind on it. I was like, well, people are all different, so how is this?
And then that's
Yeah.
when they try to shut it down. They're like, no, it's only this way. And I'm like, I mean, okay, but I think you're wrong.
Let's agree to disagree, Karen.
Literally.
So where are we here? How do you believe we can evolve, like, and unify as awakened beings, like, beyond the labels, kind of like what we were just talking about, going beyond just one way, or like a label per se, like a star seed, or like whatever, have you. These new age labels kind of can make things muddy sometimes, I think.
Yeah. I think adding labels makes people feel more comfortable, because they're able to kind of put themselves in a specific corner and just stay there. And part of a lot of the changes that I've seen, I mean, we're literally in a retrograde period right now. And then we have all of these different planetary alignments that have just been kind of going crazy for the past month. And you're seeing all these different shifts in people's perspectives. And they're like, like I was telling you earlier, I like witchcraft. Witchcraft is something that I connect with. But am I a witch? No, at the end of the day, I'm not. Because that's the label for somebody who literally just does witchcraft. And that's not something I just do. And I think a lot of people need to take that into account, because when you call yourself like death workers, astral workers, all of these different concepts that we come into, can that be something that you specialize in? Absolutely. But I think tagging yourself just to that puts kind of like a block in front of you.
The limiting belief.
Seeing that. And that's what we're literally trying to accomplish, is breaking down the barriers by taking the religious aspect out of it. But everyone's trying so hard to create either a name for themselves, a platform, all of these different ways, because at the end of the day, people need to make money. I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I do the same thing. I do readings, I do wood burnings, all of these things to make money. But you still don't have to put yourself in this box, because what you can learn, you're limiting your abilities, and you're limiting your literal perspective and your view on everything that you're doing. So if we were, I feel like even if they're just able to take a couple inches of that wall of their label down, they're going to be able to see things from a whole different platform and be like, well, all of these things are literally just lights vibrating up into the pyramid of what we are as a creation.
Right. So it doesn't
That's
even
the
really
base of it. And we're supposed to be leveling up level by level until we hit that peak of understanding and of conceptual ability to accept who we are.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's like, it's important for us to see that the labels don't make us who we are. Like, that's another ego thing, that
It is.
When you see beyond that, you see that we all have something to offer, and that's really all that matters. Like, you don't need to, like, when I first got into all of this, I really felt like I needed, like, I always was into Reiki since I heard of it, and I knew I had like an innate healing ability, and I wanted to become a Reiki master. And I got, like, when I got the book, it like manifested instantly, because I didn't question it. I just knew that it was going to happen. And, I met my Reiki master through like a group and, stuff like that, which, like, I'm in, I'll have like a 3 year sober on August 7th. So it's like I had met her through, it's so funny. We might be having because my son's birthday is July 24th. We might be having his party that day, because it's the next
That'd be
day.
awesome.
So I was so excited when my mom said that. So, but anyway, so I was in a group, and we were talking about meditation, and the girl after me said Reiki, and so I got, her Reiki master's information, and it was like right around I needed to, like, I was looking online, and I was like, I don't want to do it online, and then it happened. But I didn't need the attunements. Like, the attunements helped me believe in myself at the time, like, but I didn't need them. Yeah, like, I was already doing that healing, well, whether it was in my sleep or whatever, like, I was already doing it without realizing it. Like, we all have that innate ability inside of us to do anything we set our minds to.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be, a shaman,
Literally.
It's great. It's beautiful. Like, that is a beautiful, divine, thing. And it's important to have respect for that kind of stuff, but it's not something that is necessary for you to be connected.
Exactly. I mean, even if you think about it in, even looking back to Greek mythology or even Native American heritage, we had shamans, we had
Yes.
healers, we had all of these things. We had priestesses and high priestesses, but that wasn't just who they were.
Right.
They were also mothers. They were also spouses. They were also workers in towns doing regular mundane jobs, but they were doing these things because it's something that they enjoyed and they were open to different perspectives about it. It was just a portion of who they were, or it wasn't the whole enchilada, if you will. You know what I mean?
Right. And yeah, we get tied to that one, perspective of ourselves. We're all multifaceted. We all have, and that's why I've always kind of had like a thing about niches. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have, never made sense to me. Like, you want me to put myself in a box? Like, never.
Literally, that's the only thing I see every time is just like this metal box with a lock on it. I'm like, why am I going to do that to myself? I mean, there's a lot of people who probably see my social media content. They're like, I don't even know what this girl does. And I'm like, cool. I love being a mystery.
Me too.
Acid, because I don't want to fall into a single category. I want to attract the masses, not the masses of a singular community, the masses in general from so many different aspects, because that's where you're going to get the most knowledge and the most commitment from people is when they're coming in from the outside and just connecting with you.
Right, and genuine. Like I'd rather have it be like an organic kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Where I'm meeting genuine people that I'm really connecting with and like and actually building bonds with, and that like I like feel like I'm really falling into my purpose and my path, because like I'm really making the connections with people that I know my soul knows,
Yeah.
And then the synchronicities on top of it. It's been real.
It's important to remember too with that, like as you're making these connections, I think a lot of people forget that old connections are going to fall off too. And it's time to like cut those old strings. And I think that's a lot of what's going on with this retrograde, like right before it too. There's just a lot of strings being cut, and a lot of people are revealing either their true face or their true nature of who they are, or you're just not in alignment anymore. And that's part of getting things back into balance.
Right. Yes. No, I know exactly what you mean. It's like you know, especially with like situations with exes and stuff, it's like just be careful, because just because they come back doesn't mean that they're meant to be in your life. Like that could be a test. Like, so just be careful. Like if it feels off and it's not, you're doing better without them, keep going.
Literally. And that's one thing. I have a very small group of friends, and it's that way for a reason. And even that group is getting cut smaller. I'm telling you, it gets a little cutthroat, but it's necessary, because my peace is worth more than any nonsense. You know what I mean?
Agreed. That's awesome about that one. So what is one thing that has that never like ceases to amaze you about the spiritual like realm? Like what is something that you're always like, anytime it happens, you're just like, but maybe it's like something simple that happens a lot that you every time though it's like, damn.
I know like imposter syndrome is a huge thing, especially for readers and people who are like provide guidance to others. But when I love when I meet people who are just coming into spirituality, like they're breaking the cycles for themselves, they're understanding who they are, and you give them those couple of empowering readings or those couple of messages, and you start to see the switch. I see the changes in your face. I see the changes in your energy. I can feel the difference in how you talk about yourself, not about other people. I want to hear how you talk about yourself, and that's going to tell me if you've really adopted the change or if you're just kind of rolling with it. Because when you see that, you can see all of the shifts going on in them, and that's when they really start to come into that like bright light energy. I can see your aura start shining. Shit starts looking beautiful. And just watching that process, it's one of the most beautiful things in the world. And I can't wait to see more of it.
Absolutely. I completely, it's beautiful to watch people evolve, and like,
It is.
and know that you were able to be a part of that in some like really important ways, like you played a big role in that. And it's like it's a really like, not accomplished, but just like you're living your purpose, like a purposeful feeling. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like all the puzzle pieces are connecting, and That's one thing too. I think it can get a really thin line with that ego that we're talking about. Instead of saying, hey, I made you this way. No, no, no. I played a part in creating this version of you. I didn't make you. You made you.
Yes, you
I
just gave
just
them the
played,
bubble
I gave you a
pieces.
platform to stand on just for a little bit, and it's all you.
You
You know what
did
I
the
mean?
work though, right?
Yeah,
Yes, you just gave them like the little motivation to do the work, right?
absolutely. Somebody believed in them for probably the first time in their life, and that can be
Exactly.
the difference.
And it does. It really does. Like when my counselor said to me, like, you're not trying, you're doing it, when I was telling her about the Reiki and everything, and I
Right?
was just new mom and I was, terrified. Like, and I was like, I'm gonna try to do this. And like she said that those words made such a difference.
They did. Yeah.
Like they really did. And it's really beautiful to see how that can happen like so quickly.
It makes my
So
heart happy, 100%.
yeah, I love that. I have a couple more. So, how do you get over like the fear of judgment as a content creator?
Woo! That is a tough question. Oh, hitting the hard points, are we? Man, it's impossible to have zero fear of judgment, I think. I
Mhm.
honestly think that's just part of like the human capacity. Like you're going to be worried about what other people think of you, but it's what you
Yeah.
do directly after those thoughts, I think that plays the integral role. Like we'll make videos, we'll make silly content and I'll post it. And there's some days you'll get a lot of views, there's some days you don't. I don't have a huge following. And that wasn't my goal when I came on. I didn't even have social media before TikTok. I didn't have Facebook, none of that stuff. I was a ghost.
Mm.
And when I came back, we started creating this community, started growing, and I was like, what the hell is going on? Why are people watching me and why are they coming to me? And then the rune reading started. I was already reading runes for myself, but
Okay.
then there were others that I was friends with at the time were like, hey, well, I mean, you should probably look into that. That could be something that you're good at. Man, when I post those rune readings on my early days, I'll tell you, I was shaking when I was getting ready to hit post. And
Yeah.
now I go into it after you've learned and you've seen all of the drama that goes on with social media, especially in like different communities, whether it be witch talk, spiritual talk, Christian talk, the political side of things. All of these
Yeah.
different aspects have their own judgment, but it's about how you respond to it.
Yeah.
Not everything deserves a response. Not everybody deserves your attention. Not everyone deserves to get that anger response out
Energy
of you. You
or
have to
anger. Yeah.
be secure in yourself and understand, like, hey, there's some people that are going to like this. There's some that don't. And that's way easier said than done, especially with people who come from backgrounds of not having anybody that believes them or having people feel like they're dumb for what they're believing in at all.
Right. And yeah, and the internet can be vicious.
It is. It's a very vicious cycle. But learn the best thing, the best advice that I can give is just vibing and making sure that you're connecting with people who are actually authentically there to be with you.
Yeah,
Who
absolutely.
genuinely want to hear and see what you have to say. Because
Right.
that's
And
when you start getting, you don't necessarily need the validation, but it's nice and helps you remember that you're on the right path and you're just moving in the right direction. Those little nudges along the way, you get people like, this reading changed my life. This message is what I needed. This laugh made my day. Just those one little comment, even if I only get 2 likes on it, that one comment made it worth it.
Right. Yeah, that one person that it made a difference for is why
Yeah,
I do it. Right. And
absolutely.
it's like you literally like are healing I mean, for me, I'm healing myself when I'm doing this stuff. Like when I go live now, like the one that you came into yesterday, I was
Yeah.
like talking about something. It was like I was literally like doing shadow work while I was like doing a reading, and like
Yeah.
it was, yeah, so it can be healing. It's healing for both sides. And so yes, you're doing it, because you want, like, it's some part of us are human. We want the validation, which is, I like it.
Like, I like
But
when people like my stuff. I'm not gonna be
right. But it's also beautiful to see that once you start putting out the energy of like calling your soul family in, and like it does happen. And I've always known this, and like when I went through my first awakening, like it was very apparent, like you manifest stuff on social media and I made a video about it recently, because like
I think it's important. Like you can, and you manifest whether you're like seeing the shit on the drama side. Like I don't ever see that stuff.
I don't
Like
either.
I don't like scroll as, like I don't get sucked in as easily anymore into scrolling for hours. But like when I get on, it's like with a purpose, either to like post or like make one, and like I'll scroll for a couple minutes and see a couple messages, because now when I put the energy out to get the messages, and I'll see the readers that I like resonate with, I'll see the people that I need to see, and like it's been intense lately. Like it's been very like apparent that like these messages are for me, like they're letting me know.
I understand that completely, because I don't see the drama either. I don't, like, everyone talks about the negative side. I don't see witch talk at all. That's not on my For You page. That's not on my following page. I don't connect with that portion of that community. But I see spiritual talk. I see crystals. I see those readings. Honestly, most of my videos are dogs or animals, because when I go on there, I'm looking for relief for my kids, and I'm like, give me some comedy.
Yes, I know. I get that. My friend, he posts the most ridiculous stuff, but it's so funny. It's so stupid, but it's so funny. Like,
it's a good
yes. Yeah, it's good to have it like that kind of outlet for sure.
Absolutely.
Have you ever heard of the show Working Moms on Netflix?
No, I don't think so.
Oh my God. You have to check it out. They just came up with a new season, and so it's literally the cutest show, especially if you're a mom. Like you'll think it's so cute.
I'm definitely gonna check that out.
Check it out. It just came to me because I was watching it. But what's the next question I have? What is one way you like to stay grounded when things get like overwhelming or like manic mania sets in?
A little controversial. I don't know. It might not be nowadays, but I have kind of that old school stigma, because I was raised in thinking that marijuana was bad. Marijuana is the devil. You don't use it because it's so bad. You know what I mean? I'm in Nevada. It's a legal state. That is my sin.
Me too, girl.
When things hit the wall, like we just talked about, we're literally healing ourselves while raising tiny humans that need to understand how to regulate their own emotions. So if I can't find a way to regulate mine, I'm going to be of no help to them, just like it was when I was growing up. You know what I mean? So in order to break that, that's just one of the things. It doesn't have to be very often, as since like the last awakening that I've been through, it's been a lot less that I've needed to kind of rely on that, which is good.
Me too. But it's been fluctuating.
Is literally just go outside and stand in the wind, because when you're doing that, take your hair down. It's a Native and a Mexican thing, like on both sides of my family. Like you go outside, take your hair down, and let the wind take away all that shit from you.
I saw that in my mind's eye, like in Breathwork maybe a day ago, maybe yesterday, and it was like they were telling me like to release, and then the release came out in the reading in my live yesterday. So that's so funny you say that, because that's literally what I saw, and I'm very connected with like the wind. I'm an air sign, like as my sun sign is Libra, so like it's so funny because I resonate so much more. Like a lot of stuff with Libra I resonate too, but like I resonate more with like the Scorpio and the Aries and Sagittarius that's in me. Yeah. But yeah, that's so funny because I do connect very deeply with the wind. I've always just loved being able to be. I love being outside in the storm. Like
I mean, it gets a little too hot out here because we're in southern Nevada and it's literally the desert. So it gets out here in the summer. So like traditional resting techniques, like you go step in some grass, bro. We don't have any. Like it doesn't exist. So I'm gonna step in the hot dirt, and that doesn't give
burn your feet. Yeah,
like it doesn't work for everyone.
It doesn't give you the sanity, right, that you're looking for, right? It's
that work for you. That's another reason why I tell people you can't just trust what you're seeing and learning from individuals that you've either met on social media, that you are just friends with, that you've recently met. You can't just trust that word. You have to do and play these trial by error methods to see what's going to collaborate with you and your body grid, because I think of all of us as individual energy grids, if you will.
Yeah.
But you have to see what correlates with your grid. You have to see what makes you tick and what doesn't.
Yes, everybody has a different
chemistry overall, like brain chemistry and body. Yes, it definitely makes sense. Like look at it as a graph.
We all vibrate differently, 100%.
And that's like how like we all can gain something from one another. Really, like
Yep.
being different is what
That's
makes
been
it.
the whole theme of this, huh? How we can all connect with each other. I'm here for it.
I know. That's great. So how do you work through low energy days?
Sleep.
I love sleep.
Sleep. It doesn't happen very often that I get to, because again, mom life, there's just responsibilities. But when I'm having just one of those days where I don't want to be around society, I don't even want to talk to my closest friends, I don't even want to hear from my kids. Like, I love you, but just leave me be. It's one of those things when you go to sleep, it's important to remember a lot of us are still doing work, whether we know it or not, when we're sleeping in the same realms. So going into that on low energy days, it's important to go in there and call out and say, hey, I don't want to do any work right now. I don't have the energy or the capacity. I need this vessel to rest, and I need the full capacity of that rest to get ready for my next day. And those are just little petitions that I put out. And most of the time, it doesn't always work, because I'm a big time overthinker. Life just gets in the way, and you always think about your worst moments at night, right? So you're going through those things. There's sometimes where I will wake up and I'll feel really refreshed, but it's about taking those mindful steps to rebalancing yourself.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I did an energy crystal grid and that worked for a little bit, but then I had to take it down because the second my friend said something about, she came in, she's like, "Oh, he hasn't touched that yet?" And I was like, "No." And then after she left, 2 minutes, he was getting into the crystal grid. I'm like, "Great."
Like, damn it.
I was like, "Damn, dude, right." So I had to take it down, and it was helping. I mean, I might have to just make it in my room, but yes, doing things like that, and protecting your energy and calling your energy back when you wake up and stuff like that, and before you go to bed, can be really helpful. But I like that idea of saying, I'm like an astral freak, so I love doing the astral stuff. So I don't know if I would do that, but I should do that.
at least once a month. If you can manage at least once a month, it might change your whole week ahead when you do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I'll have that makes a lot of sense, because I'll have moments where I want to nap all the time, and I'm I can't. I can't. A little bit on my couch and have my son play pen, so that I can get 2 minutes.
Same. I'm I'm fine. Just watch your show or something.
But yes, so I like that idea. I'll have to commit to doing that at least once or twice a month.
It's helpful. It's helpful.
Yeah, I like that. I do. So let me see. I have 4 or 5 more questions here, I think. How do you overcome self-doubt and imposter syndrome?
That's still something I honestly actively work through. But a lot of it came again from connecting with people who I truly vibe with and who I genuinely kind of move at the same level with. Because when you're having those moments of doubt, it's really helpful not only to just have your spirit team, because I think if you're already going through a bout of imposter syndrome, it can be hard to trust the guidance that you hear from the other side, because at that same point, you're not going to understand if it's you or if that's something from the other side. So hearing from somebody in the physical world with you to be like, hey, you're going through a moment, it's okay, you're doing a great job, you're just having a rough moment, things are fine, you just need to work through it. But having that physical person there, or just being able to even go look at yourself in the mirror and saying, hey, this is part of the experience, you are a human and you're going to have these moments of doubt, because doubt is built into our DNA. It's not something that we can take away. It's a trigger, it's a survival trigger too, because if you don't have doubt, you don't know what to fear. Right. So all of these things, you don't want them to go away. You just want to know, again, how to manage them, but not control them.
Yes. Right. And how to harness that energy for something that is useful.
It's not easy.
And it's a lot, yes. Right. It is. It's a lot easier to just, to know what to do. But doing it is a different story.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and I like that idea of just taking that time, So how do you suggest that we help others to have the courage to share their story?
Stories are important. I love storytellers. I love to hear even the darkest moments of people's lives because they don't always get the opportunity to share that with somebody who's going to be open-minded and non-judgmental about it. So again, that falls under the same category of making sure that you're aligned with people who understand you. But it's also about connecting yourself with the community that you're a part of. You have to accept, even when, if it's traumatic things that have happened to you, you have to accept that that has happened. You can't change the fact that it existed. But what you can do is empower somebody else, even one person, to share their story with somebody that could possibly save or change their life. Because they're obviously, being a Native American woman by blood, we have the MMIW movement, we have Every Child Matters, we have all of these things going on, and they're still happening. We still have active reservation in schools and all of these things going on in the United States. We haven't searched all of them yet, so we don't even know what the damage is yet. And as we move through the MMIW movement, we have men and women going missing, children going missing and being sold into human trafficking or being killed, and all of these things that are happening. But if nobody's talking about it, nobody's going to know it exists. And that's one thing that I will empower social media with, is even if you have to make an anonymous TikTok, if you have to make an anonymous Twitter account, all of these things, they're good journals to have for yourself, but sharing that message, even if it's just a screen with a bunch of text on it, knowing that one other person has gone through that trauma or has gone through a tragedy similar to yours, can make you feel less alone and can probably make somebody want to stick around in this life a little longer.
Absolutely. And that's like one of the first things that I knew I was gonna do when I first started getting sober, started to get into recovery and wanting to be sober. I was started writing a book in my phone, on my notes, my phone, because I just knew that I needed to share this, the stuff I've been through, and I'm still obviously working on it, and it's something that's I was nervous because my grandma used to love reading, and I was nervous because I have I've had an abortion, and I didn't want her to see that in the book, and so I was so nervous to even work on any more of it because I didn't know when I was going to publish it. But now I have no more excuses. I have to get back to working on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But yes, it's important because it makes it it can make a difference. In the smallest thing can make a difference. It just, like you said, typing it out with some music behind, you don't even have to use, talk. But it's about being ready too, and it's about knowing that your healing is also helping other people see that they can heal.
Literally going back to what you just said, I mean, there's a lot of things that still have a negative stigma on them. Abortion is not a bad thing, it's a choice. And that's something that people need to remember with things like that we either choose to do or that become a part of our journey by choice or not. When these things happen, when you talk about them, it takes the negativity away from the subject and just creates it as a reality. It doesn't have to be a positive or a negative. It just has to exist, and it has to be known in order to work around it and through it and to know more about it.
And to understand the the whys and the I do believe everything happens for a reason. I really, really do. And there's so many tragedies that we probably won't even ever understand until after we aren't human anymore, and we can't understand because like you said, we have chosen to kind of not we've chosen to limit ourselves to a human body that only uses a certain percentage of its brain, and so we're only at a certain point in our evolution where it's we can only understand so much. And I think that's important, to always be striving for more, knowing that we can always evolve that much more and
continue to push the limits in a sense.
Right. And being open to it.
So let me see. How has sharing your story made a positive impact in your life and others?
I mean, I don't have a super traumatic background other than, I mean, I don't think it's as traumatic, but it's also my story. So you always kind of tend to kind of water down your own experiences. But
Mhm.
only child, single mom, she was still healing whether she knew it or not. She was working through her own traumas trying to raise a child as a young adult. You know what I mean? So there was
Mhm.
a lot of things going back through that, learning about myself that I would share with other people, be like, I just either I don't know how to connect with people or I haven't found the right ones. And when this community started and I started to share like, hey, it's hard being a mom. Wow, there's other moms out there who are struggling too. Weird. I wonder if I manifested that. We already know the answer to that. Then you start finding people who are like, hey, I don't really have anybody in my life that's into spirituality, but I want to start going through it. Wow, manifested a bunch of people that were into that too. So when you start speaking out about it, when you start sharing it, you attract like-minded people, and it also helps you heal in the process because you learn of their different ways that they found to cope with these triggers, and you may be able to adopt some or all of those traits and be like, hey, that's something that's helped me too. So let's continue sharing this knowledge, and again, going full circle, we spread that information around like wildfire. We're healing the whole world one day.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Mm.
I love it. Um, so what are your thoughts? So this is kind of like a little off topic, but like I know that you are a criminal
Criminal
justice
justice.
major? Yes,
Mhm.
okay. I think that's amazing. How do
Thank you.
you balance it all? Like how do
I
you
have
find
no
the
idea.
time?
I have no answer for that. I have no clue.
I know, right? And I get it. I know. It's just like it just works.
Honestly, I just wake up every day and I'm like, all right, I have these, like, at least these 3 tasks to complete, and I will be happy with my life. Even though there's 20 that really need to be done, if I can
Mhm.
complete these 3, I'm winning.
Yes,
I kind of
yeah.
just go into that mentality every day.
Taking it one day at a time. Yeah, absolutely. That's really good. Yeah, I'm wondering. So I know you've been keeping up on the case, and I'm honestly just catching up because like at first I was like, I was
Yeah.
being all like anti like, and like because I'm super. I don't know. I'm just super anti news. So that's pretty much why. But then I was like, no, I have to see this.
It's
Like, so what are your
easily.
thoughts on everything and how it has affected the gender roles and stuff like that?
There is a lot to uncover with not only the characteristics that we're seeing kind of thrown around in this case, but also we're getting professional knowledge about mental health. We're seeing all of these different mental health professionals on the stand talking about, yeah, I mean, this behavior, although the world has accepted it, it's still a behavioral issue, and it's still something that needs to be recognized as a negative behavior. But seeing this role switch, because all of us growing up, if we heard domestic violence, man hitting a woman, that's
Right.
just what we chalked it up to. Because everyone was too macho to talk about them getting beat up by their wife or their girlfriend or their spouse. It was something that was
Yeah.
frowned upon. But now that we're getting into this equal justice portion of the criminal justice system, where we have LGBTQ rights, we have women's rights being attacked, we have all of these things going on, we have
Mhm.
to remember that there's still that microscope of things that happen. And it happens to anybody. He's a freaking celebrity. He's
Yeah.
freaking Johnny Depp.
Johnny
Like, who
Depp,
would
yeah.
ever think that would happen? But the
That
fact that all of this
absolutely.
is being brought out with the evidence with it is starting to shift the dynamic in how not only police officers respond to domestic violence calls. It's changed a lot here in Vegas. They take both parties and they take them on a mandatory 12-hour hold
Oh
unless there
wow.
is one person that can be tagged as the abuser and the instigator of the incident.
Mhm.
So, with all of those things that play into it, changing that stigma is probably doing the same thing that we're doing with the spiritual community and helping a lot of other people stand up for themselves and speak out. And I think that's powerful. It doesn't have to be a tit for tat type of thing. You don't have to go after each other. The cycle has to end eventually, or else somebody's going to die or get really freaking hurt. And that's exactly what happened here. Dude lost a portion of his finger, had to get surgery. Like, these things
that was the part that I saw that I was like, I gotta see this.
It's freaking wild. And to know that this is a pattern. This isn't just something that's brand new with Amber Heard. She has a pattern of abusive behavior and abusive tendencies, whether it's been physically, emotionally, anything like that, or mentally. Abuse is abuse at the end of the day. And that none of that should be tolerated from any gender role.
Exactly. Absolutely. Like, I think it's giving, like you said, it's giving that, especially I think since it's Johnny Depp, that it gives that kind of it's gonna be breaking the stigma a lot quicker, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's somebody of influence.
Those macho men are gonna be able to kind of take off that Superman patch for a second and feel like a human again for a minute, you know?
Right, exactly. Because I mean, exactly.
It's Johnny freaking Depp. Who would have thought?
Yeah, and I mean, it really can, and it does happen to like people you least expect.
Absolutely.
So you just always have to be able to have that discernment and like protecting yourself and others. You know, if you see something, say something, kind of stuff like that.
And that is one of the most important messages that I think can get out there, is when it comes to anything, whether it be endangerment of children, seeing somebody that's stumbling to their car about to drive drunk, all of these things, if you see them, it's not your job, but it's your role as a decent person to help prevent tragedy or loss of life. It's a human nature. It's our job to prevent that from happening, not create it. So,
oh my gosh.
I never understood people who can just stand by and watch things happen and not either try to stop it or step in and stop it themselves.
Me either. It's mind-boggling, to people
and I'm
that
an angry masculine person, so that comes really natural for me. Like, if I see some shit, I'm gonna stop it, and you're gonna
Me too. Yeah, I'm definitely, my guides have been telling me in the last 2 years, just to, like, go with the flow, bitch.
Yep,
like, sit the fuck down. But I was like, oh my gosh, because when I looked up at the time, it said 111. I was just like, okay, like, I've been seeing all of the numbers, just everything. Everything I look at is something different, whether it's like a video or the clock.
The synchronicities, they're all coming to kind of a point.
Yes.
To see what that directional point is pointing at directly.
Yes, you know what? That's so funny you say that, because I've been getting a lot of arrows in recently. Like first it was like one of my stickers from my paint skins. It was like I ripped a piece off and it literally was an arrow. I didn't even cut it. Like I just ripped it off and it was an arrow. And I was like, okay. And then after that, like I was like, just today that it was like a down arrow for grounding. And it was just so funny.
It's even better.
What?
That's even better.
Right, and it's funny because the first one a week ago was like an up arrow for a Sunday, and like it's just so funny how it all kind of everything comes full circle lately.
There's
no, there is not. Okay, so the last question I have for you is, what does spiritual evolution mean to you?
Spiritual evolution, the understanding of oneself, is the first thing that comes to mind, because I don't necessarily think that the purpose of this path for a lot of us is to understand the other side, because a lot of us have already been there. We've already done that rodeo, and we chose to come back here and do something different. So I think a lot of it is just understanding the cause and effect of emotions, the cause and effect of our words, the cause and effect of our actions, and being able to not decipher good from bad, but assistive and unhelpful energy. What can I get rid of that's not helping the cause, and what can I build in that negative space to be more assistive to either myself or the community around me? It's all about building those blocks to make it, not to make yourself more available for everybody, but to make yourself more accessible to everybody, if you will.
Yes, and to be able to like see what you can do, like being creative, thinking outside of the box, seeing what you can do and alchemizing energy, and learning about like your strengths and like the things that you came here to work on and stuff like that. And like you were saying earlier, like with with the veil, like what you're getting at kind of is like we came here to be on this side of it kind of.
Man, okay, now you get me on a tangent.
I just want to know.
You're ready for it. Okay. Not everybody is going to agree with this, and there's a lot of people who are going to say I'm a fucking crockpot for thinking like this. I've always looked at it as kind of like a stigma, like a block, if you will. Like, why is there a veil if we're supposed to be open to accepting both sides? And people always want to talk about the veil is thinner, the veil is thinning. I don't think the veil exists. I think it's put there. That concept was put there to limit what people believe and to limit what people think they are able to achieve. They're like, oh my God, I never understand that side of the veil. But you're already a part of that side of the veil.
Your higher self, right?
Yeah. You're already
right.
You're literally connected at birth. You have a version of your higher self from birth.
That's already there.
So you're already part of that puzzle. So I never understood when people are like, oh, the veil's thin, things are going to get crazy. Like, oh, so your own emotions are going to go crazy because there's things we need to manage better.
Right. And your perspective is different. Right.
Yeah.
I understand that. I can wrap my head around that. That makes sense because it's like if everything's already ever present and in existence and everything's already like, yeah, I'm with you.
So like, I don't know if you've watched Once Upon a Time or if anybody watching this will have watched it, but I forgot what season it was, but there's a spell called the broken or the shattered mirror or the shattered vision spell or something like that. And it's literally a mirror. And I've always thought that people who put up that block with the veil, it's like putting up a mirror. So you just can't see what's on the other side. So you're forced to look at that reflection. But what if we break it? What if we break through that stigma and we understand that that's literally just a wall? That's like
right in front of you. And then if you just like moved over a little bit, like it's all open space.
Exactly. Like you're stuck in front of that wall. But for what? I never understood it. I
know it. No, I totally agree. That makes sense to me. Like that definitely makes sense because like it's funny too because like when I like first maybe about like a year ago like when the first like eclipses and stuff and I would see all this stuff with the veil thinning and I was like getting all my upgrades and stuff, I was like, the veil is gone. Like that was like one of my first things that I like talked about was like there is no veil. Like it was on Halloween there was like an eclipse or something. That was when I was like the veil is gone.
And I honestly like I know there's maybe some people that'll agree with this. There's some people that won't, but I truly, with the veil not existing at all in my concept of it, I really think that the whole concept of the veil broke during the pandemic. And I think that wall just was like completely like, boop, okay.
It's like the floodgates opened. For so many people, because I think a lot of people were forced to do that shadow work, whether they like realized they were doing it or not.
They were forced to be with themselves instead of focusing on the chaos.
Or with their partners, or whatever. Sometimes a lot of people's relationships have been tested, stuff like that. But I was forced to be with myself for sure.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for being here with me and Brandy. I really enjoyed getting to know her, and I hope you guys learned some stuff from our conversation and get to know her by checking out all of her social media below at the description.